Hello. If you're thinking about purchasing an RV or you already own one, certainly one of the most important components when it comes to safety are your tires. Here at Colonial RV, we carry the full line of Winnebago Class A, B, and C motorhomes, and while they come in different sizes, so do their tires. Now, when you're out on the road for your RV and for your family's safety, having just a little tire sense will certainly go a long way. So today, we're going to teach you how to read the coatings on your tire, as well as give you some safety tips. Come on, let's get rolling. First thing we're going to show you is how to read the coatings on your tire. Now, with your RV tire, you may not need to know all of the codes, but certainly some are going to be important for the time that you own the RV. Looking at it, the first thing you'll get to see, it says LT right here, and that stands for light truck. Often our cars, passenger SUVs, they have P for passenger. In this case, it's light truck, and we're going to get to that in a second. That's going to be followed by three numbers. Sometimes it's 215, 225. That's going to give you the actual width of the tire. Obviously, the bigger the number, the bigger the tire as far as its width. That's separated, and then they have a little line, and then they have two numbers. Sometimes it's 65, 75. That's the aspect ratio of the tire. That's going to give you the ratio between the width and the height of the actual tire itself. After that, you'll see that there's a letter, which is R. Generally, all of the tires that are used today are radial tires, and we're going to go over that in our safety feature when we have some safety tips, just to give you some more. And then there's two numbers. In this case, it's 16. Sometimes passenger cars will have the size of the wheel in inches is 14 or 15 inches. This is a 16-inch wheel, so that's what those numbers are right following that right here. Now, sometimes you're going to see some other notations like M&S, which is mud and snow, AT for all-terrain. There's also all season. Again, just giving you information about the tire that you have on your RV. Now, when it comes to tires, they all have speed ratings. Obviously, high-performance vehicles that are race cars are going to have much higher speed ratios, and the coding on that is going to be from L to Y. In the 2020 Travado, this is a speed rating of R, or 106 miles per hour. Now, that's the speed that the manufacturer of the tire have tested this and that it's able to drive. Now, for the sake of this video, we're explaining it to you, but anyone who owns a Travado, we're not telling you to go out and drive your Winnebago Travado at 106 miles an hour because the tire can. You still have to obey local speed and state and speed limits, please. In addition to the coding here, we're going to now get into two of the more important codes, which is your load range or your ply rating, as well as the TO date, which is going to give you the actual age of the tire. These are two of the most important, which we're going to explain here. Okay, so while this is all good information with the coding, now we're going to talk about two of the most important codes that you're going to definitely need to watch and look at while you own the length of an RV. First one we're going to talk about is the strength of a tire. Now, you often have heard they talk about ply rating as well as load range. Basically, they're the same. Back in the day, ply rating was the terminology used because they were talking about the actual layers of fabric underneath the outer rubber portion of the tire. Nowadays, tires are used with more stronger materials like nylon and steel belts. So people aren't talking about the ply rating, they're talking about the load range. Now, I own and drive a Honda. That is an actual D load range, and the tire pressure for that maximum is going to be 65 PSI, and that actually is an 8-ply tire. In this case, with the Winnebago 2000 Travado, you're going to see right here it says load range E. Load range E is actually up to 80 PSI, and that's basically like a 10-ply tire. So it's a stronger tire, it can hold more air, it can carry more weight. So as you get up into the Class A's and B's, you're going to get into E and F, and then when you get into some of the diesel pushers, you'll get into G and H, which will then get up to about 120 PSI. Those tires will be much stronger to hold more air because obviously the RVs were going to hold more weight. Now, regarding the pressure, while the tire manufacturer, they are going to rate their tire for how much pressure it can hold, and it'll always show you here that the maximum inflation tire pressure, what it is. With an RV, you still have to go with what the chassis and the RV manufacturer suggests. Generally, inside the door jambs of most Class B's and C's, there's going to be a little yellow and white sticker. In the case of the Travado, there may be a different axle. The front may be 80 PSI, where the back may only be 65, or vice versa. So you're never going to go with just the tire manufacturer. You're going to go with the actual chassis and RV manufacturer. In Class A's, it's usually on a little sidewall next to the driver's left foot panel. They have some information on tires. That's going to be also going to tell you for diesel pushers in Class A's. Sometimes you're going to inflate the front axle, the rear axle with different PSI when the vehicle is fully loaded. So that's just information that you're always going to want to look at the manufacturer's yellow and white sticker inside the door jamb or on the actual panel of the wall to give you the actual tire pressure to inflate your vehicle to. Now, the second code that's really one of the most important that we're going to talk about for the length that you own your RV. Now, everybody owns RVs for different periods of time. If you're the type of RV and customer that every 3-4 years you trade it in, it may not be as important. But if you're like me, you own a vehicle for a long time, or some people with RVs, they own them 10, 12, 15 years. The most important code that you're really going to want to understand and keep checking is your DOT date. That's a Department of Transportation that's going to give you the actual age the tire was manufactured. Now, in this case, you'll see these 4 numbers. It says 40 of 18. This tire was manufactured the 40th week of 2018. This is brand new. It's going to have full tread, and you'll see that there's no dry rot and spidering because it's new. We have another tire here in comparison. You'll see it has a DOT date, and it's actually 05 of 04. So that was manufactured, this tire, the 5th week of 2004. Now you're going to say, well, why is this really important for me to understand? Well, it is. Both of these tires have great tread on it. Even this one, that's a 2004. Maybe they were only both driven about 500 miles. This is a brand new 2020 Travato. That's great to know. And if you haven't driven RV for a number of years, the reason why you want to know the date is because just like humans and we age, we get wrinkles, well, so do tires. As they age, what will happen is the sidewalls will start to dry rot. It'll start to spider. And that's just going to cause a blowout, and that's certainly something that you don't want on any of your tires on an RV when you're out on the road. So understanding the TOD date is actually one of the most important things that you're going to need to know for the length that you own your vehicle. So we're talking about the age of the tire. Now you're going to say, well, when do you actually need to change it? Well, that all depends on a few things. Generally speaking, we usually say that if you own an RV and it's the tire actual manufacturer is 6, 7, or 8 years, that's when you're really going to want to start to check the sidewalls and see if there's dry rot and spidering. We're not saying that tires only last 6 or 7, 8 years and then they all have to be changed. If you take care of tires according to the manufacturer's suggestions, meaning you have the proper inflation of the tire and pressure, certainly tires can last longer. They can last 10, 12 years, even possibly longer. But it's understanding the code and how old the tires are, and that's when you're going to want to start to check and make sure that there is no spidering. But again, we're not saying it only lasts 6, 7, or 8 years. It all depends on how you take care of the tire, which we're going to get to in our next segment of tire safety. Before we get to the next segment of tire safety tips, I thought it would be interesting to go over a few quick facts about the modern day tire. In 1830, Charles Goodyear is the first person who actually invented, and he came up with all the research and processes to make a rubber tire that either wouldn't be too sticky. He had a lot of hurdles, wanted to make sure it can hold enough weight. During his lifespan, he actually didn't even profit from the invention of the tire. He died poor. It wasn't until about 40 years later that another company came along. They took his research and they actually perfected it, and here we go. We got a tire that actually works. Charles Goodyear also invented the rubber soccer ball. So when you talk about a man that was working his entire life, it's very interesting to know here we have his name, and it wasn't even his company. He didn't even profit from it. Now, since we're talking about actual names, we all know names such as Goodyear, Michelin, Firestone. And if you're like me, you always want to know who the best is. And what I'm talking about is who makes the most tires in a given year. And we're probably talking about hundreds of million. If you think of Goodyear, Michelin, and Firestone, they actually are the numbers 2, 3, and 4. So the question is, who is number 1 and makes the most rubber tires in a year? Now, do you have the answer? It's actually these guys, Lego. They build and produce over 330 million rubber tires a year. I thought that was pretty interesting, and if you didn't, maybe your kids will find it interesting. For this next segment, we're going to talk about safety tips and routine maintenance for the time that you own your RV. Now, we have a tire here, and as you can see, you're always going to want to, when you're walking around your vehicle, check for any types of cuts. You're going to see any types of real deep scrapes or nails or screws. Anything that would compromise, obviously, the tire safe, the structure of it, is something that you're going to want to do on just a routine basis. The next thing you're going to want to do, which is actually one of the most important as well, is tire pressure. We talked about it with the coating. Your RV, you're always going to want to have an understanding, and based on that yellow and white sticker inside the door jamb or on the wall of the RV, it's going to tell you what's the proper inflation pressure for your tires. You may get them in different stores. There's obviously different types of tire pressure gauges. This is one that's great because with RVs that sometimes have dually tires, this can check the tire pressure for the inside as well as outside tire. So you're just going to want to periodically check that Again, making sure that all your tire pressure is actually going to help you with tire wear and some other routine maintenance. One of the most important, make sure you're always checking your tire pressure. Now, you're going to want to check the tire pressure when the tires are cold. If you've driven for a long distance and the tires have heated up, you want to make sure that what happens with warm tires, the pressure is going to change. So it's always the most accurate time to check your tire pressure is when the tires are cold. That way you get a more accurate reading. Now, if you've owned an RV for a long period of time, now we're getting back to the tread. If the tread of a tire gets worn down too much, it could be legally bald. And what would happen is during driving in inclement weather, snow, ice, and rain, it can cause you to skid and lose control of your RV. So when we're talking about tread, most tires brand new are going to come with a tread. We're talking about the depth of the actual tread here of about 10 or 11 30-seconds is the actual measurement. Once you get down in a tire, anything close to 2, you generally will be legally bald, and you can actually see that. Now, if you're not sure, well, how do we measure that? You can go in any automotive store and they have this great little device, and this is actually going to measure the tread of the tire. All you would do is just put it inside and you'll touch the base of the tire above the tread, and that would then just give you a reading. In this case, this tire hasn't been driven, and it is 11 30-seconds. Obviously, there's different types of tires. Tires can be up to 17, 18, 19 30-seconds, so have a much deeper tread. But with most RV tires, generally you're going to see them to be about 10 or 11. You don't want to get down any closer to 2. Now, if you don't have a little device like this that you can get, a tire tread meter, there's another old tale that does work well, and it is the old penny. So what you would do is you take this penny and you just insert it on the side of the tire. Now, in this case, I can't see much of Abe Lincoln's head other than from his chin down. If you can see Abe Lincoln's entire head on this penny, you'll know that that tire is now legally bald and your tires must be changed. Interesting fact, we're making this video in 2019. This is the last year the United States is going to mint the actual penny. So maybe it would be good to either get some type of a measuring tool other than a penny if you don't find one in the future. Now we're going to talk about tire wear. Now, we've all heard about rotating our tires, and that is very important even for an RV. But one thing that you're going to look at when we're talking about tire wear is looking at it just even before you rotate it. It'll give you some signs of what's going on with your vehicle. If you see that there's wear on certain parts of the tires, and you could find this information anywhere, it'll let you know whether or not you're out of alignment, whether or not the air pressure in one tire is too much or too little. So the tire wear of a tire is going to actually give you a lot of signs of what's going on in your vehicle, and it's important to have an understanding of that. Now we're going to talk about tire storage. And what we mean by that is if you don't have an indoor facility to store your RV, if unfortunately you're not driving it that often, which sometimes that happens in life, you're going to probably want to invest very inexpensive in a set of tire covers. Tire covers for all 4 of tires, they can cost less than $165, $70. So you're going to understand why we're talking about this. Well, before we talked about the coating, the properties of tires, and what will happen to a tire if it's not driven that frequent. So that's why tires are going to be very important. But before we get into the difference between a tire that's driven frequently and a tire that is not, we're just going to take a step back and understand a little bit more about the actual history of the actual tire itself. We talked earlier about the codes and the year a tire was produced. And tires, just like humans, when we go to the beach, you're going to need to put protection on. And tires, they need UV protection too. When tires were first produced 25 years, they were actually white in color. We've all heard of white walls. And this was because in early manufacturing, they used an actual strength provider called zinc oxide, which was white. As the tire evolved, researchers then tested other ways to make tires more durable, and they found a stronger component, which is actually a waste product of petroleum, and it was carbon black. Carbon black is a much stronger UV stabilizer, which helps to absorb sunlight and not have the actual rubber of the tire absorb harmful ozone and UV and break it down. So if you didn't know why tires are black, now you know. Okay, let's get back to the carbon black stabilizer and why we need covers. Over time, it will lose its ability to do its job and protect a tire. So if we have 2 different tires, one that's driven, one that's not, what's going to happen differently there is, for a tire that's driven, what happens is as the tire is flexing and it's driving down the road, it's going to have its own natural waxes coming to the outside of the tire, and that's a process called blooming. it's going to protect it from UV and ozone and protect the tire, the sidewalls, and all of the rubber portion of the tire. Now, as opposed to a tire that's in storage and is not driven and is out in the elements in the heat, wind, and sun, that's not going to have its natural waxes continuously moving to the outside of the tire and protecting it. So what will happen is it's going to speed up the breakdown of the rubber tire. That's where tire covers will come into play and will be much more important if you're not going to be in stored and out of the elements. Tire covers will certainly extend the life of your tires. Lastly is what we all like to do when we clean our vehicles is going to be tire dressings. Now you're going to want to be very careful because there are some tire shines and products out there that have a lot of alcohols and silicones. If you continuously are applying it to your tires to give it that real bright shine, make sure that it doesn't have excessive amounts of either. There are others that don't have that and that will clean your tire and make it certainly look nice and black. But some products will actually break down the rubber and all of that waxes, and then it's going to help to age the tire faster than we would think. So you want to be cautious of what tire products you're applying to it because, again, you want to make sure that the life of the tire is protected and you're not breaking it down with the alcohols and the silicones. Thanks for joining us today at Colonial to go over the safety of your RV tires as well as go over the proper coating to understand for the life that you own it. And from all of us at Colonial RV in the Jersey Coast, thanks for watching. Drive carefully.